Event chair Chris Zervos promised a family picnic for June 26th that would run like clockwork. It did. Held at Wildwood Metro Park, the casual event attracted over 200 current and former parishioners who enjoyed a potluck dinner and watched parish children play organized games and dance. The basic meal of coney dogs was in large measure a donation of the Dionysiu Proestu families. However, the tables were loaded with specialty picnic fare from everyone else. A blue ribbon ensemble from Holy Trinity, along with Metropolitan Nicholas, gathered at Detroit Metro Airport to greet Archbishop Demetrius and his entourage. They included Father Larry and his family, Archons Paul Sieben and Dr. Gerald Bernacki, parish council members, and Goyans. Archbishop Demetrius was joined by Metropolitan Nicholas of Detroit and Bishop Alexander of the Bulgarian Orthodox Church to celebrate Vespers on Saturday, June 27th. Joining the hierarchs were Father Larry, Father Chris, and other clergymen from the metropolis of Detroit, including Father Nick Kotsis of Ann Arbor, Father Theodore of Westland, and Father Anthony of Southgate, Michigan. 350 parishioners and guests were not deterred by torrential rains and strong winds. They moved to the community center. More guests arrived. Once there, they enjoyed a grazing dinner donated by 19 of the parish's restaurateurs. A commemorative gift commissioned for the occasion was given to each guest. The gift, a boxed glass paperweight, had a depiction of the cathedral with its centennial logo etched on it. The box bore an icon of the hospitality of Abraham, designed by Dori Malopoulos Papadimitriou. A featured attraction was the memory room, outfitted with tables of vintage family photographs, along with parish archival documents. After an opening prayer by Father Larry, TV 13 anchor Tony Geftos introduced co-chairs Kathy and Brian Chaka, and Michael and Karen George. Kathy thanked the steering committee. In particular, she thanked Council President George Sayers and Terry Ehrman for creating the setup from her ideas. She also thanked Yanulis Tathulis and Chris Zervos for being guardians of parish history and advising her on church protocol. Karen George likened the evening to the biblical epic of Noah's Ark in the Great Flood. Describing Holy Trinity's parishioners as kind and generous, she emphasized that regardless of when a family entered the parish, 1915 or 2015, all of us have an important role in the parish. Mike George quipped that the parish office received a caller asking if the festival was occurring, since they saw tents going up. Father Larry welcomed parishioners and guests to Holy Trinity's 100th anniversary gala evening. He thanked the parish for its kindnesses in welcoming him and his family less than a year earlier. He offered a tribute to Father Chris, who had been with the parish for nearly 55 of its 100 years. Father Larry presented gifts of appreciation to Father Chris and Presbytera Ann for their parish service. He recognized his esteemed colleague, Father Chris Hadjigeorge, who spoke. Father Chris thanked God for allowing him to be a priest for 67 years. He thanked his wife for her constant love and support. He thanked Father Larry for his respect, the parish councils and Philoptochos leaders he'd worked with, the chanters, choirs, acolytes, and youth of the parish, the office and custodial staffs, and the chairs and committee members for their hard work on the 100th anniversary celebration. It would be one of the last times he spoke to his congregation. He passed into the Lord's hands quietly in his sleep just 6 months later. A Centennial History in Music was presented by guest artist Joanne Chrysochos et Evangelia Leontis, with a historical narration by Chris Zervos. He described national and local conditions in 1915, attracting Greek immigrants to Toledo, then highlighted the parish's 100-year history, pausing for musical presentations and ending with the flower duet by Lakme by the Leaves. Of primary concern to the parish was the existence of what seemed an unending mortgage it has sustained from the renovation of its community center. The debt service on the note consumed much of the pledges. An $800,000 balance existed nearly 10 years later. Through creative and dynamic leadership, strong fundraising initiatives, and a generous parish, the parish paid this note in time for its centennial celebration. Parish Treasurer Dennis Lawrence chose a dramatic way to announce the burning of the mortgage. Metropolitan Nicholas presented copies of the historical documents elevating the parish to a cathedral in 1987. Largely, he said, through the efforts of then Parish Council President Dr. Don E. Stathulis, and with the support of Father Chris Hadjigeorge. The letter, dated December 4th, 1987, from Archbishop Yakovos, proclaimed that Holy Trinity is elevated from a parish to a cathedral, citing, "Your community is renowned for her outstanding organization. It worthily carries on her educational and religious work, your willingness to handle the directions of church leadership, the generosity with which you support the programs of the diocese and archdiocese, and under the direction of Bishop Timothy, you've completed the decoration of the church. Archbishop Demetrius addressed the audience and said, "We as Greek Orthodox Christians are inscribed with the DNA of 11,000 years of Hellenic culture, the basis of Western civilization, coupled with Orthodox Christian theology and the sacrifices of millions of saints and martyrs. It is our legacy to project this to the future. The Toledo community emits wisdom, life, hope, and faith." He closed by saying, "This is a night of dreams, a night of magic." We are thankful to the Lord for offering this to us as a coronation of 100 years of tremendous achievement by the grace of God. His Eminence received gifts from the parish, a glass key to the city of Toledo, and the first of two $5,000 donations to the building fund for the St. Nicholas Shrine at Ground Zero in New York, site of the 9/11 terrorist bombings. The hierarchical Divine Liturgy celebrating Holy Trinity's centennial anniversary occurred June 28, 2015. Archbishop Demetrius, along with Metropolitan Nicholas, Father Larry Lagaikis, and Father Chris Hadjigeorge, accompanied him. Father Larry received the title Economos from Archbishop Demetrius during the liturgy celebrating Holy Trinity's centennial. Theodore Maludi was the first Hellene to settle in Toledo about 1893, according to his great-grandniece, Chrysula Maludi Stathopoulos. In 1903, Theodore's nephews, Peter and Constantine Maludi, joined him. Constantine married Sula Karapanagiotis, the daughter of Peter Karapanagiotis, another early founder and a significant donor to the parish. Two other Greek pioneers arriving in 1899 were brothers Vasilios and Argyrios Kostopoulos. Argyrios was the father of Margaret Mancy and the grandfather of Areta Mancy Checkles, John and George Mancy, Renee Mancy Wood, and Dr. Emmanuel Gus Mancy. A meeting on Sunday, March 29, 1914, drew 120 Toledo Greeks. A collection tray was passed and the donors' names recorded. The Greek Orthodox parish of Toledo had just been conceived. A 31-year-old mother of three, Stratigula Zervos, and her cousin, Panayota Zervos, were in the crowd. They were the only two women listed as making their own $3 donations, about $50 today. A certificate of incorporation for the Greek Orthodox Church of Toledo was filed with the Ohio Secretary of State on June 3, 1915, and recorded 3 days later. The signers were Spiros Paisios, Panos Peter Karapanagiotis, William Vasilios Kostopoulos, Nicholas Franzos, Demetrios Pilaris, Theodore Veroni. Immediately, the community addressed its next major concern: to find a suitable location for a church. A special General Assembly on October 10, 1915, approved to buy a lot offered for $5,000, the equivalent of $129,000 today. With $2,300 raised from among the group and interest-free loans of $2,200 from Vasilos Kostopoulos and $500 from Peter Katapanayotis. They purchased a frame building at 802 Superior on the same lot where our cathedral now stands. The frame house was remodeled and used for worship services. Reverend Father Methodius Fusianus began his ministry with the parish in 1918, taking immediate steps to build a church. A committee began raising funds, swiftly securing $10,000 from the local parish, about $172,500 today. Father Fusianus traveled to other cities to raise funds for the building project. Consul Secretary Vasilios Voudouris kept meticulous records of each fundraising trip. Plans for the Byzantine church were drawn by Chicago architect Nick Dokos, using a plan found in varying sizes in Chicago, Pittsburgh, and Cleveland. In August 1919, the frame house was raised. George Tamperis of Chicago was hired as project contractor. Construction costs were not to exceed $54,000, but the total went to $75,000, or $1.3 million today. That did not include iconography, pews, stained glass, or other ornamentation. The icon wall and altar table were common brick. The elevated solea we see today did not exist. By private donations, icons were commissioned from the monks of the House of Abraham on Mount Athos, arriving in 1921 and 22. Curiously, both the original opening of Holy Trinity and today's 100th anniversary are occurring simultaneous to a global pandemic. Misnamed the Spanish flu, the 1918 flu had ended in spring 1920. It claimed 675,000 American lives and an estimated 50 million worldwide. In 2020, we are imminently waiting for vaccinations to begin the end of the COVID-19 pandemic. The following photograph was taken at the first annual picnic of the Ypsilanti Chapter Order of the HEPA on August 7, 1927 in Paradise Park, Michigan. Toledo's HEPA chapter had been initiated just 10 months earlier in 1926. The picture's significance is that it shows 170 Greek Americans from the Toledo community just 12 years after Holy Trinity's founding. This is the earliest known group picture of Holy Trinity's early families. 72 picnickers have been identified with family surnames and descendants still in the parish today. Alex Tokels was not yet 5 at the picnic, now 98. He was a remarkable resource in identifying many in the picture. Also, Renee Wood found a notated partial copy of the same picture from her father's estate, Gus Mancy I. Pages 218 to 219 of the Centennial album has the names. May their memory be eternal. The original picture is 42 inches long and has been reframed. It will be on display in Holy Trinity's archival library someday. The Great Depression of the 1930s made life difficult for all Americans. Toledo's industries were especially hard hit, and its workforce hit harder. The national jobless rate was about 25%, Ohio's 37%, but Toledo's 80%, the highest in the United States. Yet, then as now, Holy Trinity pushed forward to be a full-service parish. It provided parishioners with a religious, cultural, and social life. A Greek school was established in the late 1920s. Emmanuel Yakoumidis was head of Greek school and religious education. Father Fusianus had been reassigned after Holy Trinity's church construction project was complete. He was brought back in 1930 to work out Holy Trinity's financial problems. The parish was in receivership with a $15,000 debt, about $233,000 today, which it could not pay. The parish reduced its mortgage to $3,000, about $46,000 today, by soliciting bank claims. In 1939, largely by the efforts of Nicholas A. Pappas, a HEPA president, the church interior was renovated by the local HEPA chapter. Parish council records are quite clear that Mr. Pappas made an impassioned presentation to parish council in offering HEPA's financial underwriting of the project. He said, "What do we have to show for ourselves as Greek Americans, if not our churches?" New oak pews, an oak communion rail, and a bishop's throne were purchased. The solea was elevated from the nave. At the same time, George Velasquez donated a new marble wainscot and mosaic tiled icon wall. In 1942, the basement rooms of the church were remodeled with a donation from Chris Zervos, Margaret Monera's father. During World War II, 116 of Holy Trinity's sons went to war in every unit of the U.S. Armed Forces. 3 did not return. 8 future Toledoans living in Greece fought the Axis powers in the Greek Armed Forces or its underground. Holy Trinity took part in every form of patriotic action to help the war effort as a proud parish community and as loyal U.S. citizens. In 1942, the U.S. Treasury Department appointed the Order of HEPA to be an official agent of the U.S. government to sell war bonds to finance the war effort. Toledo's local HEPA sold over $500,000 in bonds, nearly $8 million today, within the Holy Trinity Parish and to the Toledo area at large. As veterans returned and married, a post-World War II baby boom created 76.4 million people born between 1946 and 1964, and increasing the U.S. population by 50%. In 1950, Father Theotokos Pappas was secured to serve Holy Trinity by Council President Emmanuel Yakoumidis and past Council President Evangelos Stathoulis. As one of the first American-born graduates of Holy Cross Seminary in Pomfret, Connecticut, Father Pappas showed that he was well qualified to lead Holy Trinity forward. He found a parish ready to advance, needing only a spiritual guide. Together, they were about to begin a new era in parish history. Father Pappas generated a renewed enthusiasm within the parish. Volunteers poured out to help with his new ministries. He separated Greek school and Sunday school curricula. Sunday school enrollment was increasing geometrically due to the baby boom. He formed separate youth and young adult organizations, forerunners of Junior and Senior Goya. To support his youth program, he made singing in choir mandatory for all young adults over 15. He encouraged his young adults to accept their stewardship of the parish by serving on parish committees and standing for parish council. Father Pappas's enthusiasm and initiatives encouraged the parish council to once again undertake a major building project, building a community center. In October 1950, Parish General Assembly authorized a building fund campaign. Michael Evdeman was elected building fund chairman. Later, Mr. Evdeman was succeeded by Evangelos Stathoulis. The task was to raise $130,000 or $1.3 million today. On October 20th, 1951, 1 year after Father Pappas arrived, groundbreaking services were held for a long-awaited community center. Designed by Toledo architects Hahn and Hayes, it would be built by the Speaker Corporation. Parishioners on the building committee took turns shoveling a spadeful of earth. Excitement within the parish rose as the building project took shape. Parishioners were given tours of the new structure to generate the interest needed to sustain a fundraising drive of this magnitude. On May 24, 1953, with construction nearing completion, again with the guidance of His Grace Bishop Demetrios, the cornerstone was laid. George and Lottie Velasquez donated the funds for the privilege of laying the cornerstone. A dinner reception was held in the church basement with Ernest Villas, Archdiocesan Goya director, guest speaker. The Greek Orthodox Educational Building was dedicated September 13, 1953. A special prayer service was held to commemorate the event with His Eminence Archbishop Michael of North and South America officiating. The honor of opening the new building was given to AHEPA President Constantine Rupas, as AHEPA's organization had been the greatest donor of $10,000, about $100,000 today. A banquet followed in the auditorium of the new community center. Council President Basil Fusianis was Toastmaster. The campaign for pledges and funds to retire the mortgage of the community center was completed within 3 years. The Holy Trinity Parish is indebted to its building committee chairman, Evangelos Stathoulis, his predecessor, Michael Evtheman, Parish Council Presidents Basil Fusianis and Thomas Fisher, and the parish at large for the coordinated synergy and generosity during this time. Father Chris Hadjigeorge and his family arrived in the parish on Sunday, December 4th, 1960. They became an integral part of the parish immediately. Holy Trinity was well organized in providing ministries to an enormous family population, as shown in these photos of its youth from 1965 and 66. Father Chris managed all this well. Although the parish observed its 50th birthday in 1965 and had hosted Archbishop Athenagoras and Archbishop Michael, Holy Trinity had never been officially consecrated. An extensive remodeling program was planned to modernize the church in preparation for its consecration. The parish observance of its 50th anniversary was delayed for a year to coincide with the consecration and to accommodate the schedule of Archbishop Yakovos, who would make his first of 3 visits to Toledo and who would officiate at the consecration. Under the leadership of Chairman Mike Roussos and his committee members, the major part of the program progressed with remarkable speed during the fall and winter of 1965-66 and was substantially completed in time for the consecration. Holy Trinity was consecrated on Sunday, May 22nd, 1966, in a solemn ritual with Archbishop Yakovos officiating. Dr. Chris Copen, an Archdiocesan Archon and former Parish Council President, and his wife, Mrs. Catherine Copen, donated $2,500, about $20,000 today, to become godparents of the parish, officially opening Holy Trinity's doors for the consecration service, which preceded the hierarchical divine liturgy. A banquet was held Sunday evening in the community center. In the 1970s, Holy Trinity enjoyed an ambitious and prolific intramural basketball program started by Bill Kolakis, George Markham, and Bill Chiraklis, with full support from parish businesses and parents. Steve Evtham, George and John Mancy initiated a successful Greek festival in 1970, going strong 50 years later. A baby boomlet of Generation Y needed to be nurtured in the church, yet lay leaders were divided on parish Greekness. Parish income did not meet expenses and Sunday school attendance had dropped off. Under Andreas Dionysiou, Don Stathoulis, and Chris Zervos, old rivalries were laid aside. With a leap of faith and unity, the parish adopted stewardship. With no minimums or maximums, parish income rose by 35%. A refocus on family ministry doubled Sunday school enrollment. The parish entered another era of growth and achievement. As an outreach to the community, with the initiative of Philoptoos President Yanoulis Stathoulis and with full support of Parish Council, Holy Trinity sponsored the opening of the Amasis Painter exhibit at the Toledo Museum of Art in 1985. Archbishop Yakovos attended with Beatrice Marks, National Philoptoos President, and Bishop Timothy. The parish pulled out the red carpet for the weekend. His Eminence presented Antiquities Curator Kurt Luckner and Presbytera Ann Hadja-George with the Medal of St. Paul. Simultaneously, the parish adopted St. Paul's Community Center and Cherry Street Mission and passed a monthly tray of support for them. The parish raised $9,000 for Holy Cross Hellenic College and $4,000 for Orthodox missions during this period. Priscilla Zervos, director of Sunday School, committed the support of an Orthodox priest from Sunday School's stewardship offerings. In 1986, the church was showing signs of deterioration. The roof valleys leaked, creating blistered plaster cornices. A homeless person seeking shelter in the outside stairwell to the basement lit a fire. Its smoke was drawn into the church proper. Smoke damage to the interior of the church was so severe that it required full interior repainting. A super raffle raised enough to pay for a new roof. In April 1986, Parish Assembly approved $225,000, or about $535,000 today, and raised it a year later to $300,000, $712,000 today. The plan included structural fixes to the cracked terrazzo floors, a vestry addition with a bathroom, a new window on the north wall, and an accessibility ramp. New iconography consumed 60% of the project. A total of $315,000 was pledged and paid in 2 years. The project went well and was completed in time for the Athenagoran Centennial. In December 1987, to commemorate the 100th birthday of Patriarch Athenagoras, the parish hosted a weekend gala for the Diocese of Detroit. Again, Archbishop Yakovos visited Toledo. Key events were an ecumenical Vesper service with a diocesan choir, a diocesan youth luncheon at the Toledo Club, the unveiling of the Cycladic vase at the Toledo Museum of Art from parishioner donations, and a banquet at the Radisson Hotel featuring Dr. Robert Nelson. At the hierarchical Divine Liturgy on Sunday, His Eminence proclaimed Holy Trinity a cathedral. He conferred upon Don Stathoulis the Medal of St. Paul. Earlier, I mentioned the similarity between 1920 and 2020, both years associated with the pandemic. The other similarity is that in 1920, The parish had just completed a construction project by building its church edifice with a large mortgage. Today, our parish is embarking on a new construction project, the groundbreaking for which occurred earlier this month. It will have no mortgage. The project is to remove the accessibility ramp, build an addition, which will have a mechanical lift and 2 new unisex accessible bathrooms. Other minor fix-ups will occur. Funding will come from the Memorial Fund. Further, repairs to the iconography damaged during the rainstorm during the centennial will be underwritten by Maria Proestu Hagi Pendelli. Father Larry will explain how you may order this 3-inch by 3-inch lacquered brass Christmas pendant ornament.